Maybe you've been there before. Maybe you will be there someday. Perhaps you never will. Have you just loved someone so deeply, cared for someone so unconditionally, and just being with that person brought you great joy? But it broke your heart that your loved one chose time and time again to participate in destructive actions that utterly wrecked their life. They chose to hang out with the wrong people. They had many unhealthy habits, maybe addictions, poor lifestyle choices, poor self-esteem and self-worth. And it deeply pained you that you couldn't do anything about. Despite giving the best care, providing the right resources, and unconditionally loving them, they didn't change. You just felt helpless because you knew that you couldn't do anything to bring change to the situation. Because it was up to your loved one to decide to change. And that was usually a far too slow realization and process. Now, if you've ever been in that situation, or if you're in that situation currently, well, you're not alone. God has felt that same way many times, time and time again. Our scripture today is located in Hosea. Now, the book of Hosea is located in the Old Testament, and I don't think it would be a stretch to say most of us here are probably unfamiliar with the book of Hosea. Hosea is included in what is classified as the minor prophets of the Old Testament. Now, Micah, Amos, Habakkuk are also included as minor prophets, with major prophets in the Old Testament being identified as Isaiah and Jeremiah. Now, the label of major and minor isn't an indication of value or significance. Instead, a major prophet is one because your content and your prophecies are much longer than the minor prophets. The major prophets just have a lot more to say than the minor prophets. For example, the book of Isaiah, which is a major prophet, is 66 chapters long, while the book of Hosea, which is a minor prophet, is only 14 chapters long. Hosea, as I said, is a prophet. And a prophet is a person who speaks on behalf of God and conveys a particular message to a specific group of people at a certain moment of time. A prophet's job is not to predict the future as much as it is to inform the people that if they don't change their ways, then destruction will happen and they will be sorry. Hosea's message is one of warning. He's warning the Israelites that if they don't change their wandering ways, they will be destroyed. They will literally be destroyed by their enemy in battle. Hosea is bringing the Israelites a message. This message to warn them because they have turned their back on God by being lured by lesser gods. Scripture calls them Baals. Now, Baals were pagan and cultural fertility gods. And when one sacrificed to these lesser gods, it would be promised a bountiful harvest and a satisfied family. Now, the Israelites were just following in their ancestors' footsteps. It wasn't too far back in their history that the Israelites were being lured away from God by creating an idol in the form of a golden calf. This history has a way of repeating itself time and time again. And this 11th chapter of Hosea, God is just really at his wit's end. God is in a very vulnerable state. God is like a parent of a wayward child. God's beyond frustrated and wants to give up on his child Israel. And then in this 11th chapter, it's as if we're eavesdropping on a conversation that God is having with himself, where God is just going back and forth on whether to give up on Israel, on whether or not he would metaphorically wipe his hands clean of them and walk away. Now, throughout these 11 verses, God is going through a plethora of different emotions, of denial, of frustration, and disappointment. This dialogue that God has within himself concludes with God saying that he's not going to turn his back on Israel, because after all, he's God, and not a human being who makes decisions based on whims and emotions. In other words, God will look kindly on them, even though they don't deserve it. God will look kindly on the Israelites, even though they have turned their back on God time and time again. Now, God had good reason to turn away from the Israelites, but God chose not to. In the scripture, we see the character of God and is overflowing with grace and kindness. Kindness. Well, that's the fruit of the Spirit that we are concentrating on today. Kindness. It seems that kindness is often akin to niceness. We say things such as, "Oh, he's so nice." We might naturally think, because he is so nice, that he's kind. Or we believe kindness is the absence of meanness. We believe someone is kind because they are good at refraining from being mean and from doing hurtful actions. Now, like all the fruit of the Spirit, kindness is often misunderstood. On the surface level, kindness is viewed as an emotion or something that is sentimental or whimsical. And someone gives you a gift, then we'd most likely consider that they are a kind person. Generally speaking, kindness is also more of a feminine characteristic. We're more likely to say that a female is kind than we are to say that a male is kind. When it comes to the fruit of the Spirit of kindness, it is best understood as having the ability to harbor a broken heart when others grieve and are in pain. And not only that, kindness requires a willingness to help those who need help. We'd be hesitant to say that a person's kind if they see someone hurting across the street and it pains them in their heart, but they're not willing to help them out. Kindness has the element of having that broken heart and grieving, but also being willing to do something about the hurt that they see in front of their face. Now, the Hebrew word for kindness is hesed. And it's the same Hebrew word that is used in the Micah 6:8 verse. It says, the S, what does the Lord require from you? To do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with your Lord. Now, the Hebrew word hesed means love, kindness. It means mercy, love, grace, loyalty, or devotion. Now, there are some people in life who are just hardwired to exhibit kindness. I strongly believe that God was very deliberate in dispersing different fruits of the Spirit throughout all humanity. Your gifts, your fruits, are not the same as my own. Just like my fruit, my gifts are not the same as yours. We will naturally get some fruit of the Spirit over others, and some will be easier for us to grow than others in our life. But all fruit of the Spirit are really interconnected to each other. That's why they are called fruit of the Spirit instead of fruits of the Spirit. All the fruit of the Spirit depend on each other, rely on each other, and bounce off of each other. You can be sure that if you don't love your neighbor as yourself, you won't choose to be kind to them. And vice versa. If you find it hard to be kind to others, then you need to ask yourself if you actually do love your neighbor as yourself. I read this fantastic article this past week from the Atlantic, and it was titled, "The Secret to Love is Just Kindness." It's a longer article than most, and you probably need a good 10 minutes to read it. The article unpacks the main difference between couples who make it, meaning couples who live happily for decades, and couples who don't make